Right. I'm hot. I'm sweaty. We're recording. Let's do it.
Now he will live up to the ever fragrant will.
Exactly. Yeah. The scent of men.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Radiator Arms, the only podcast recorded in the key of V8. And now, today, I, as ever, am joined by the lovely Will, a.k.a. Will the Plank.
Hello, everyone.
And to my left, and from Sports and Touring, and of course, JayEmm and Friends.
Hello.
And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about first project cars and or, delete as applicable, first fun cars. But before we get on to that, gentlemen, anything you want to get off your chest this week?
Well, we had the rant about the A12 last week, which I gave, and I have to say, other than that, I'm actually feeling all right this week. You know, the weather's been good. I've had the Maestro out. I've been having some fun in the sun. I actually, for once, don't have any complaints that I can currently think about.
Fantastic. Now, is it just me, or with this weather getting a little bit nicer and us now being, at the time of recording, well into the depths of May, all the fun cars are out? It feels like Britain has just come alive again.
Oh, yes.
On my way here this morning, pulled into a petrol station to put in some fuel. I was there with the R8 V10 GT RWD. I will not call it an R8 GT. And moments later, beautiful F355 pulls in.
Oh, yes. You sent us a little video of that on the group chat, and it looked gorgeous.
Well, yeah, a little bit of minor issues on the inside, but otherwise really, really cool.
It still looked gorgeous.
Which was it was interesting, though, because when the car pulled in, I said to the guy, is that a 355 or an F355? He went, no, it's a manual.
Okay, yeah. He didn't get it, did he?
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
I had to explain it to him. I said, it's either the 355 F1 or the F355. And he went, oh, yeah, it's the manual. I was like, oh. Anyway, and then a 488 pulled in, which was all right. And as I was driving on my way here, a 720S pulled up alongside, and they went like that to the R8 GT, not a GT, rear-wheel drive. Yeah, so I was actually quite cool. But if only they knew that I'd rather be in the 720S, because that just gives you way more driver engagement. But that's just my opinion.
I do recall very vividly once driving home from Scotland in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo rear-wheel drive, and there was a chap in an old Merc SL, I think the R109, like late 70s, early 80s jobby, and it just looked so splendiferous. It was utterly regal, and I was sat in this cramped, horrid Lambo thinking, I'd swap. Like, I would just swap. Like, it's not mine, so I don't really care. Like, please take my keys. Like, can I have yours? He was just doing it right. It's just something as well when the sun is out, particularly if you've got a convertible, get the roof down. Like, everything is right with the world. Especially as I think both Ant and I, we frequently get to drive past an airport, and every now and again you can time it right and you get a plane either taking off or landing at the same time. That, to me, that's like, yeah, that's something awesome.
I feel like you're in some kind of 80s music video.
You do. You really do. Or in a video game.
Yes.
You're like real life Test Drive Unlimited.
Yes. Oh, God, what a great game that was. I used to love that.
Speaking of video games, just very quickly, just for a brief tangent, they have an official release date of Grand Theft Auto 6, the 26th of May, 2026. Are we excited?
I am.
I am as well. I'm excited because that lands on my 35th birthday, is that very day.
Oh, I know what you're getting for your birthday.
Exactly. Probably not Grand Theft Auto, because I'll buy it myself beforehand because I'll be too excited.
Yeah.
I'll pre-order it.
I'm really keen because they're going back to Vice City.
They are,
aren't they? And obviously there hasn't been a game set in Vice City for what, 20 odd years or something?
Yeah, it'll be 24 years by that time, I think.
It's Vice City Stories. I think.
Oh yeah, sorry, Vice City Stories. There was that 2004, something like that. I think so.
Pass.
Yeah, well, around that kind of time.
A long time ago, and I'm hoping. I know it's set in the modern day as opposed to the 1980s. For those who don't know it, Grand Theft Auto Vice City is effectively Miami Vice, the video game, but you play the role of the criminal. And that holds a special place in my heart. In fact, this is a done deal, right? So I am working on my 1990s and noughties gaming room. Will very kindly helped pick up a 28-inch Bang & Olufsen CRT TV for me the other day to replace my old 25-inch, which had sort of maybe packed up or not, and I've saddled Will with now to tinker with. And incidentally, if you'd like to see some electronics and old school video game geekery on the channel, please let us know in the comments or email us on the landlord at theradiatorarms.co.uk or .com, sorry. Email address and tell us and inspire us because I think I've got a PS2 already, I've got the game already, so before GTA 6 comes out we need to play through Vice City as it was originally intended.
Let's do it.
On the old CRT. Glory days.
I've never played it. I was too busy working when was Vice City out? That was
2002.
Yeah. I was
How old were you then? Were you 67?
Yeah.
Just collected his bus pass.
Yeah, just collected my bus pass. Listen, mate, if I looked this good for 67, let alone what I would otherwise be now. No, I was pretty busy. I was in the throes of trying to save my first consultancy actually after the recession or during the recession or something like that, and dealing with my dad being not very well.
So those games, I don't believe in remaking films, but I do believe in remaking games because old films, with some exceptions, and if it's something from like the 50s or 60s, they are a bit janky by modern standards, but you can go and watch. I can show you a film from the 80s or 90s easily, and you can really appreciate it and enjoy it. In fact, sometimes I find you appreciate those films even more now because of all the practical effects and things like that. But I would never tell you must go and play Vice City in the way that we told him he has to watch Miami Vice, because it's going to play like a near quarter-century old game. Like even for those of us that did play it, you go back to it and you go, this isn't how I remember it. No, because back then, this was just how everything was. I mean, we were playing a little bit of Sega Rally 2 the other day, and our friend Ben was struggling with the fact it can't hold a constant 60 frames a second. And it's like, well, no, that's how it is. Like, it can't do that. If water splashes in front of you, it can't render that at 60 frames a second. It just slows down.
Yeah. Though, mind you, I did 100% complete GTA 3 on original hardware not too long ago.
Oh.
So that is a labour of love. But that's my favourite game of all time, GTA 3. A story for another day, but a favourite game of all time.
That's some commitment.
But on the topic of project cars, I think actually the idea of games does tie into it, especially if you've played games like Need for Speed, because I think for a lot of younger people today, their first project car is actually in the digital realm in a game like that, where they're sort of building that car out, upgrading it, learning about how, certain things affect its performance, body kits and that sort of thing. And even the idea of stages came from computer games, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. The idea of that came from computer games. And no, it is not a standardized thing. Stage 1 from one company is not the same as stage 1 as another company.
That's why whenever we talk about stage 1, we always do the air quotes, which people listening can't see. We go, stage 1, because it's never universal.
Didn't San Andreas introduce quite a bit of car customizing as well?
It did. It was when you could do the low riders, and you could start really pimping your car up with like subs. And they had the little thing in there. I don't know if you remember, like in the cheaper cars, you wouldn't get the bass. They'd EQ out the bass. But as soon as you upgraded your car and put in the bigger speakers, you'd get the full range of the music.
Oh,
I do not remember that, but that's quite a cool
You
detail.
probably did what I did, which was turn that off because it annoyed you. But that is a thing they did. It was an option there in the audio menus to turn off the bass reduction. So that's the thing. You look it up. I promise you, it's there.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I was playing it on an old Panasonic CRT that allegedly had some sort of Dolby surround sound, which I think was just called Dolby Surround. I'm not convinced those rear speakers ever did anything.
No,
it was Pro Logic. It was Pro Logic.
Yes.
That's what it was. Yeah. Oh, it's all flooding back to me now. I mean, Pro Logic really is only one step above Dolby B noise reduction for your cassettes, isn't it? I mean, I do love that when I get into a car to review and it's still got the original head unit and they're proudly telling you about all this like noise reduction and stuff like that. Dad had a Triumph Stag and it still had its original 8-track in it.
Oh,
Yeah. These days, finding original head units can sometimes be quite tricky, and I think it's quite, important for keeping the period look of a car, getting a correct or appropriate stereo.
yeah. You see, I had mine for the Maestro, but I gave it away to a friend of mine, Chloe, because she does radio restorations and things like that, and she has Montegos and they've had Maestros in the family. They do all that kind of stuff. She specialises. That's her thing. And she was saying that parts of the equipment for them, like the reels and cogs and bits, you just can't get anymore. And the radio wasn't fully functioning, but parts of it were that could be used to save radios that are otherwise
You've
fully
donated
functioning.
its organs.
That's pretty much what I did. I thought, well, I'm never going to use that radio in the car. As cool as it is, it's never going to be in there. And the likelihood is that car's never going to be ever fully original anyway to anybody who buys it when I'm done with it. So I would assume that most people wouldn't really care. They'll just put in whatever radio they want. But most of us need some kind of hands-free these days, unless you're an absolute diehard kind of collector. So I know some people, and you people out there might also be the kind of people that do that will take out their aftermarket radio when they go to shows and put the factory one back in for the show, then take it out and put the aftermarket one back in again.
Actually, the 550, when I got it, came with what is now, I think, quite a quaint upgrade. It had a parrot in it.
Oh,
Do you remember
I
those?
used to fit those.
Parrot Bluetooth
yeah,
kits.
Parrot Bluetooth, yeah.
Yeah, it also had a radar detector in it as well. It's this little thing mounted to the top of the steering wheel. And I was like, what the heck is that? And the guy was like, oh, yeah, there's a radar detector the first owner had fitted. And for a long time, I was convinced that it didn't work. Now, radar detectors in Britain are not illegal, but they are in much of Europe. And I was just curious. I'd never driven a car with one in before. So I'd left it on. And of course, this thing might have been fitted 20 odd years earlier. So I wasn't sure if it still worked on the correct frequencies or what. And I wasn't sure it actually still worked properly. And then I drove past a military base once and it went absolutely insane. So, project cars.
Oh, yes.
Will, have you ever owned anything else?
I have owned many, many cars. So for those who are kind of keeping up to speed, I have my Mark IV Golf Estate and I have my 1990 Austin Maestro. But those are not the only cars I've owned. Those are not the only ropey cars I've owned either. Basically, every single car I have owned apart from, I think, my Mazda 2 and the Sandero that I had is essentially been a rolling project car with something continuously wrong with it at all times. So I will start off by talking about our Radiator Arms support vehicle, which is the Golf. Whoever sits in the back has to be let out because as at the moment the rear door handle doesn't work from the outside, which is an MOT failure, so I do need to fix that, and also safety, yada yada yada. But it basically means that I need to spend a day tearing the car apart to fix that. But I thought it'd be much more interesting to slap a Volkswagen Bora front end onto the car first and change the coilovers first before fixing the necessities like the door. So I am well into the project car and the budget project car mindset. So project cars I had my Mark 1 Mazda MX-5.
That's like the project car, isn't it? I mean, really.
Absolutely is. And that one really was a project car. When we got it, it was one I did up with my first girlfriend. It needed a roof. It needed a full respray. It had no MOT. The suspension was shot. It was on awful wheels and tires, which just didn't work. It had so many faults, but we put it all back together. We changed the seats on it. We changed the wheels, and there you go. In case nobody can see, Ant's just dropped a nice CD case with his coffee. That's the thing about water getting stuck to cups. Do you remember that when you ever had that? You pick it up and then suddenly you've got a whole magazine with you.
Oh yeah. To be fair, I'm still traumatized by the time when I was a kid. We had this like the glass tankard type thing style, which I really like, pub sort of style glass. And I basically just got the handle, lifted it up, and the glass came up, but the base of it just stayed where it was. It just coated me in water.
Oh dear.
All right, hang on a minute. Random one. Okay, sorry to totally derail this.
No, okay.
You know when you suddenly remember something from your childhood, and you were like, this was everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and then one day it was gone.
Yes.
When exactly did we stop gunging people on TV?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, what?
Right, every single kids' TV show in the 1990s involved somebody having some gunge dropped on them, typically a parent, teacher, or other authority figure. And that was that was basically like the ultimate get your own back type thing. I think it was one of the shows was called Get Your Own Back. And you just dropped this like weird green slime type thing. Maybe for Christmas we'll gunge Ant.
We can finally be a real country again and gunge someone.
Yeah. Gunge is what made this country great, damn it. Like
Gunging these days sounds like it would have some total other meaning to the internet kids. So
that's why I had to say what.
Exactly. So yes, we just need to clarify. It's not a weird thing. It's a fun thing.
Yeah, my granddad didn't go to war, so we couldn't drop green slime on some sort of teacher or other authority figure. I mean, in fairness, my granddad didn't go to war, but that doesn't really matter. So, sorry, Will. I distracted you. You carry on.
Your first project car, the Mazda MX-5. What's it called again?
The Eunice Roadster.
Eunice Roadster, yeah.
L423 RJN for those playing along at home.
Complete with foamectomy, is that the one?
It was a foamectomy because I'm 6'4", and even then at the time I used to be a very skinny lad, and then I discovered the fact I liked food, and so even then I struggled to get into the seats, so I had to cut the bottom of the seat. You take the seat apart, you pull the bottom of the foam out of the seat so you can sink lower into it. And then what I also did was the door handles on the inside, I removed those and put out of a Peugeot 106 Quicksilver the grab handles that are on those, because they weren't like plastic ones, they were like kind of some weird stringy rubbery thing, but they would sit flat, so I could use that to close the door. And I removed the dead pedal so I could get my leg all the way down there, like further away from the clutch pedal, so I could actually reach out. That's one of those cars I really had to put the seat all the way back to fit. And it was hilarious because it looked like I was getting out of a clown car, especially because it was painted bright purple. So I'd pull up at places, especially if I had the roof up as well, and then I'd get out and people would absolutely be howling because the car only came up to about kind of my waist, something like that, at that full height, especially when it was lowered all the way to the full. That car did not do good things for my back.
No, I don't think we can blame that for a lot of problems you now suffer.
Exactly. So I had the Mazda MX-5. And I was telling you guys this story over lunch, I think. We briefly had, or it might have been the last episode, actually. Yep. The V12 750IL, the E32, E587 OVN or OVN.
So 87 car?
87 car, yeah. That was a project. That one was too expensive and we never finished that. And then I had a whole bunch of Peugeot 106s. They were projects. They're actually what I first properly cut my teeth working on cars, as I bought a crashed 106. I was in while it was crashed as well. My friend drove us into a wall because he'd not long had his license and was absolutely going for it down a back road, and met another car oncoming, and in mid-air going over the bump put his wheel to the left, and as soon as he got traction, boof, into the wall, and we bounced off the wall like twice. And so I got that car. I replaced the wing on it, I replaced the bumper, I replaced suspension components the first time, and then I actually got my first kind of experience using body filler and pulling things out, and then stuff like that, and I painted it matte black from Halford's rattle cans, because yes, I was, as I've apparently said too many times before, I once worked at Halford's, and they gave you a really good trade discount then, which you don't get anymore, which is really sad. The trade discount used to be like, I could get bulbs, like headlight bulbs, that would cost £7 or £8 on the shelf for 30 pence.
That's pretty good.
That tells you how much their markup was as well. So yeah, and I did all of that. I sprayed it up, and basically what I did was I took a £100 car and I put about £900 of work into it and made it worth about £75.
Yeah.
That is how you do it. That is man maths right there.
That is project car life, isn't it?
That is. So obviously nowadays, there's been a whole load of cars where I've done similar kind of things. My whole ethos was buy cars cheap, probably spend a bit too much money on them doing them up and them still breaking and not having enough money to kind of fix them and then getting rid of them and getting something else. But the thing is with the Golf, which as regular listeners know, that was a £350 car I've spent about £5,000 on. It's one of the few cars I haven't actually given up on. And I think it's all right. You guys go out in it quite regularly. I mean, it's definitely not worth that. But I think the end result, other than the fact that the suspension has got poor load carrying abilities when we're all loaded in and it likes to scrape, I think it's all right. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I think that is the very definition of the sunk cost fallacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, it's got a bit of character to it, that car. I mean, mostly because you're a character and you're often in it. But yeah, I think the Golf is the kind of car that validates the route that I took as a younger man, which is that for certainly the first, 20 or 30 cars that I had, I would buy a totally standard example of a car, leave it more or less entirely standard with the odd exception of changing the alloys, maybe putting a better stereo in it, that kind of thing, and then sell and try and lose as little money as I possibly could, because I saw friends of mine that did the project car bit, and I'd gone and spent, say, £3,000 on a car. They spent £1,000 buying the car, £2,000 doing the car up, and at the end of which it was worth £1,000. So I would always look at the car as in what is my total cost of ownership, which of course you can only work out when you come to sell it. And I realized that very early on, if you pour money into the car, particularly in terms of modification, that is not money you really get back.
This is it, because modifications are subjective. The things that I might like on a car, I know for a fact that James mostly does not like, and I think Ant doesn't mind. It's one of those, and that's three very differing opinions on it. But for me on that car, I got to a point where the spend was on it where I was like, in for a penny, in for a pound. At this point, I've got a pretty good base now where it's mechanically, touch wood, pretty reliable, and all the major things have been done. And now I can do what I wanted to do to it in the first place, which was have fun with the Mark IV platform. And I have had fun with the Mark IV platform. I'm now, because we were discussing this over lunch as well, it is no point in me replacing that car anytime soon, because it owes me a significant amount of money, and it's now very reliable, and I would quite happily take it nearly anywhere. So yeah, for me, I still believe it's worth it because I've had fun with it. But the problem is if you're doing this with every car, or you do what I have done before, which is buy cars, fix them up, get bored of them, and sell them at a loss. Even though I've basically fixed my Mazda was a little bit too. My Mazda 2 was a little bit like that. It didn't need a lot, but it had a couple of bits done to it. And the irony being that whoever bought that is probably still having a very good time with that without, I imagine, any real need to be done yet. Any work to be done to it, should I say yet. So that is the thing you sometimes have to watch out for when buying project cars, is you have to really want to either spend the money and have the experience doing up that car, or you have to plan to really keep it.
Yeah. And have you actually ever bought any project cars?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a project car. If what you mean is a car you work on yourself, no. If you mean a car that you modify, then yes.
I think, all right, let's define project cars. Now, answers from the floor, but when somebody says to me the words project car, what I have in my head is an image of something, typically on either eBay or Facebook Marketplace, which is either an example that is being modified or being restored, but which is not yet complete. There is still work to be done. So you are buying it knowing that this is not the finished article. There are still things that have to be done. And typically these are sold by people that say they've run out of time, run out of driveway space, run out of goodwill in their marriage, that sort of thing.
No. I've never ever bought anything like that. The only thing that I would class as a project car is a car that I bought as a project that I wanted to do a series of modifications to. And every time I think, right, I know where the end of this is, then I discover new things that I can possibly do. And that's the 370Z Nismo, which I bought from a showroom. It was actually their car, but it had 20 miles on it before I took it for a test drive. So delivery miles, basically. I got a massive discount because of that. And it was meant to be a demonstrator, but they never actually
Demonstrated it.
Mine was the only test drive, and I said, I'll have that one. And then they sold it to me. But the plan for that was always to, modify. I think I put the running miles on it, had it serviced, and then the suspension came off, and a new set of KW coilovers went on with hydraulic front lifts, and then then the back box came off and was replaced with some resonated pipes. Just kind of continued from there, and now it's currently got its engine out in pieces, waiting for some new internals.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen the 370 in person.
No,
I don't think so.
It's been away for a while. It's been about a year.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that coming back. Actually, James, you do have a project car. You're just not working on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Professor Tomato.
Yeah, well, Professor Tomato was not really intended to be too much of a project. Professor Tomato, it turns out, was quite a significant project. And this is also one of the things that has always put me off project cars, which is that they are almost, I would say, without exception, not as described.
Yes.
Because people will always say, well, it just needs. And you're like, no, it doesn't just need, does it? Because if it did just need, you'd have done it. The particularly funny one is when people go, oh, it just needs like 50 quid spent on this and then it's good as gold and we'll fly through the MOT. And it's like, yeah, but it'd be worth another grand if it did have an MOT on it. So for the sake of 50 quid, why haven't you done it? You know why they haven't done it, because they know full well there is a lot more than that stopping it getting through the MOT.
It's like when you buy an MG and all it needs is a battery.
Yeah, shouldn't have even needed that. I'll tell you the first project car that I think I remember buying. Well, there was an Alpha GTV, but that's not going to count because that went almost straight back. And that actually was just a pack of lies is what that was on four wheels. I bought a Lotus XL V8.
Ooh.
Now, in the early days of the channel, I started with my Lotus Evora 400. I then soon after bought a Lotus XL, which is a really cool car from the 1980s through to the early 90s that Lotus built. I also had an Elise as well. And I love the XL. The XL is such a cool, really underrated car. Anything with it, though, didn't have the most power. It's 180 horsepower, lovely twin-cam carburetted Lotus engine. But I always felt like the car should have had more. And as it happens, Lotus themselves wanted it to have more. They wanted it to have a V8. And they had ideas for it, but the company just never had the money for it. So there was a car up for sale that was advertised as a Lotus XL V8, and it had the Rover V8 in it, I think the 3.9. And it was advertised as basically most of the work has been done, but what it needs is effectively brakes and suspension and stuff put back on it. Now, I never got to sit in this car, ever. And it's one of these cars where I think, had I turned up now, I would have looked at it and said, I think I'll have my money back, thank you very much, because what is on your driveway is not the thing that I've just been bidding on. The car was full, stacked floor to ceiling with various pieces of car, and it was very, very clear that it needed serious work to get it done. Yes, there was an engine in the correct place, but that was about it. And it quickly dawned on me that I didn't have the money to get my normal Lotus XL to the condition it should have been. I definitely didn't have the money to try and finish off this project. No way, not even with all the help I could muster up and everything. It was so far away from being done. And I think it cost me about 1,500 quid. And what was really annoying is that when I went and got it off the guy, he then showed me some photos of it when it had been on his driveway in the exact spot where I collected it from. And it looked like it was in really good condition, but it had just sat there for so long. The thing had basically, it didn't rust, because they don't really rust, but it had just fallen into a state of disrepair. But what I remember most about that car is the day it left me. So I'd agreed a sale, and I'm pretty confident I was losing a bunch of money, but I needed the space. And at this point in time, I was still doing a lot of stuff with Laurie, now of Laurie's Mechanical Marvels, and we were sharing the same shed space, which he still uses to this day. So I had a little bay of it, he had a little bay of it. Now, the car was sold, and we'd arranged for a guy to come and collect it and deliver it to like almost the other end of the country. But that was the week that we had the beast from the east.
Well, I remember that week.
Yeah. When Britain was just covered in snow. No matter which part of it you were in, it was unbelievable.
That was about a week after my wedding, that.
Yeah. So I woke up, opened my curtains, and it's just white outside. And my first thought was, right, well, guess the Lotus isn't being collected today. A couple of minutes later, I get a phone call, and I'm like, yep, that's the transport bloke. He's going to be telling me that he's not coming, and that's absolutely fine. So I answered the phone. He goes, oh, hi, yeah, Mr. Martin. It's, Bob from Bob's Discount Collection and whatever. Yeah, we'll be there in about an hour and a half to see you. And it's like, what? Like, oh, blimey. Okay, I better get my skates on. I had my Subaru Impreza at the time. So luckily something with a little bit of all-season ability. Summer tyres, though. Got in that, managed to get it over to the shed. I think the guy had actually beaten me there. We loaded the car onto the trailer, and he drove off through a snowstorm with the trailer just sliding around, snaking all over the place, watching this car on the back of it. And then the guy it was going to was phoning me, giving me grief that originally we'd agreed the car was going to be delivered by about 5 p.m. and now it's going to be about 7:30. And he was really annoyed that he had to go back to the unit and open it up for my guy to get in after he'd had his dinner. And it's like, dude, have you not looked outside? There's a foot of snow out there. Like, you should be amazed that it's even coming full stop. Like, the fact that it's going to get there but a bit late is a miracle. And it did get there, and then it got dropped off. But yeah, that was just... Actually, before that, I had an E36 track car, but that... yeah, that wasn't really a project car. It was just because it was a running, going concern. Like, it didn't need anything. I just never used it. And I think those two experiences burned me quite badly because I realised I'd spent an awful lot of money on this idea, realised then I wasn't earning the money to bring the idea to fruition, and lost so much when I came to sell them. I just thought, I don't have the money, I don't have the income to be able to just throw away hundreds or thousands of pounds on a car because you've bought it off someone that's had it and realised it's a bad idea. Then you've got it and realised it's a bad idea. And yeah, I got frustrated with it.
So I'm going to bring it back to the definition of project cars quickly. So I think both of your definitions were correct. It is the car that somebody else has already started up and given up on for various reasons, as you mentioned. Some of those are genuine reasons. Some of those are reasons that they're like, I can't afford this. I can't even afford to now. It's cost me so much. I can't even afford to put the MOT on it and replace this £50 part. I just need it gone. Sometimes that does happen. I have seen that. But most of the time, I think you are right in the fact that it is, if it was an easy fix, they would have done it. Mm-hmm. There is going through the route of buying an already working car to modify, which is what I did with my Golf, but it turned out it wasn't actually working. But most of the time, you go through that. But the other one, is what I like to call the untouched, unseen, first time anyone's ever really wrenched on it project, which is what the Maestro was. So my experience with project cars are. Have you guys ever watched any of the channels like Vice Grip Garage, things like that? So here's the guy in America, basically, he's got a big following. He goes out and he drives up the fields and he takes these cars, these 60s, 70s and 80s cars. They've been sitting in fields for 20 years and he does basic stuff on them, gets them running with like a bag full of hammers and hopes and dreams and occasionally a new part from Advanced Auto. And then he drives them thousands of miles across the country with a million rust holes in them just to get them home, just for the fun of it. Now, that's all well and good in America, where the state inspection essentially means nothing. But in the UK, we can't really do that because we have to MOT our projects first before we can actually take them out on the road. So in the UK, with my Maestro, before I could go and have any fun with it, I actually had to really inspect the car and look at it because it was off the road for 19 years. It was in a barn, and it basically hadn't run in all of that time. So I got it running again, but then I had to do brakes and suspension, and I had to do tyres. I had to go through rebuilding the carb. I had to go through the engine. I had to go through all the fuel lines. I had to go through electronical stuff in the interior, replace switches, buttons, and this brings me on to the part of budget with a project car. What most people think when they look at a car, if they haven't really inspected it, is, oh, it might only need a few bits. Yeah, I can put 500 quid aside for that. If you've got a project car, and especially on the budget end of things, I would double the money you've put aside for it and then some, and then temper your expectations of how long it's actually going to take to get on the road. Now, I was lucky. The only reason I managed to get my Maestro on the road so quickly, got it in the November, and it was MOT'd in the April, was because I already happened to have one which had rot issues, but was a great parts car. Now, this is the Apple 2000 Maestro that you originally reviewed on the JayEmm on Cars channel, and where we first met through. But even then, you'll remember that it was, while it was complete for the most part, it was in really bad shape.
It hadn't been cared for.
No, it hadn't been cared for, but mechanically it had been cared for. So I, from that car, took the fuel tank, I took the brakes, I took several bits of interior trim and exterior trim as well, which you could not get for love nor money anywhere. In that original Maestro, I had to get the parcel shelf supports to that. I could not find any for an entire year. And when I wanted to look at my 5-speed swap for the current one, it took me over 2 years nearly, I think it was, to get a mount come up on eBay. So sometimes you, with project cars, reality is you might also need a parts car. And I think that's something people don't take into account depending what it is.
So I'm gonna lay on you gents my hot take, all right? Which is that I think the project car, as it originally was, is dead.
Okay.
I shall tell you for why. The point of most or many project cars for people back in the day was a way of getting yourself into a car for cheap. It was a way of saving money on the cost of buying and running a car by effectively being the labour. And it is dead, I will put to you, for several reasons. Number one, just buying a car is more expensive now. The days of being able to find a car for 1 or 2 or 300 quid, long gone. Today, you want a car that's an actual running, going concern. Not a good car, just one that will get you from A to B. Minimum, I would say, £1,000. Minimum. And that includes a great many cars you would class as a project.
And those cars will all have issues or faults. There will be something wrong with them. They just will.
Yeah. The parts for many cars are now quite a bit more expensive. eBay had an unintended side effect, which is that it made the global supply of parts for cars much more accessible. which meant that for many of these older classic cars, parts started drying up a lot quicker. Because where before, if you needed a bit for your Maestro, you phone Bill the Maestro bloke, who you've only got his number because you spoke to a friend of a friend of a friend who used to be in the owners group, and it's this almost underground network of people, but he has got the bits. Now, he could just stick it all on eBay. So anybody that needs it can get it. This also means, because they've now, whereas previously they only had a few people locally, they've now got a global network. The parts are a heck of a lot more expensive. The scrappage scheme also took a great number of potential cheap, easy to run cars off the road of all different descriptions. And we don't have that quite so much now as we did pre-COVID, but dirt cheap car finance also meant that if what you needed was just a way to get from A to B for little money, you could get cars. There were cars going at some points for £99 down, sometimes even no deposit down, £99 a month.
I have a great example of this. The Sandero that my mother and I bought together, because my mother does very little mileage. When I was, when we were sharing cars and that situation worked out, that was £1,500 down and about £130 a month.
Yeah,
that was it. That was we
for a new car,
for a brand new car with a warranty,
yep,
and everything, and a service plan as well. It had a service plan on it for that price.
So there are not really very many project cars that I can think of any kind which today would cost that little to run. So I think the notion of your primary car being a project car, I mean, look, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I think anybody that's thinking of doing it for the savings, my personal opinion is that you're insane.
Yes.
There's a little bit of hope for cars at the moment. I was actually back and forth with our friend Ben at Dad Cars this morning, talking about the Renault 5, and apparently there's a deal on those. £3,500 down, 49 months, but at £239 a month.
For an EV that's going to be a popular one. That Renault 5 is a stonker.
That's really cheap for a modern day EV, because the Kia EV3 was coming in at something like £700 a month.
I'm waiting for them to do the Renault Twingo. I think that's going to be a big one for them as well. Because not only is it based visually on the first gen Twingo, which is, I just think, such a cool car. And actually, that is a car I would love to own. It's on my list of cars I really want to try one day. It's a good looker. I think they've got the marketing right on them. And I've got a bit of a soft spot for Renault anyway. My wife has a Clio. We obviously had the Sanderos, they're the Renault brands. And I got a really good relationship with my Renault dealer. So that makes the brand for Renault, for me, even a stronger prospect. But have you seen the Renault 4 as well that they're making now?
No, I've not.
It is a car that is going to have an actual fully retractable folding soft top roof at the top, like in the old kind of...
like a smart roadster?
Yeah, well, something like that. But it's really cool. I think Johnny Smith, Late Break Show, he did a video on that in France, and I watched that, and I was like... That is going to be a car that fits the bill for a lot of people.
Renault are on fire at the moment.
They really absolutely are. They are making a lot of the German manufacturers, I think, quake in their boots with what they're offering.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that Renault 5, I mean, it's the bottom of the range, entry level for 22,000.
Yeah.
For an EV these days, that's just like, what? How is that possible? So, and it's a very cool looking car. I mean, it's the kind of car that when I first saw its publicity, I wanted one. Just from how it looks.
And here's the trick that I think they got right. We've spoken about this before, and you've strongly spoken about this, James, is that the problem a lot of people have with EVs is not the drivetrain itself, it's that the cars are inherently boring. And those Renaults that are coming out with are not boring in the slightest.
Not at all.
No.
I especially do like their Renault 5 Turbo.
Oh yeah, the limited run 135 grand thing. That's pretty wild. Like I
want one of those.
I bet you do.
I just want to look at it. I'm not even bothered about driving it. I mean, I think it would be a hoot to drive, but I just want to look at it. But I'm going to offer a contrasting opinion to James. I actually think the idea of the project car is not dead. In fact, I think it's the future. And the reason I say that is because it wouldn't necessarily be about getting a car for cheap that you get from A to B. It's about getting a car that you couldn't otherwise afford, and that could be something like, I don't know, an R34 GTT that someone wants. Forget the GTR, we've talked about that in a previous episode, but something like the GTT, it's outside their budget, so they find one that's kind of broken, and that, you know, if you're mechanically minded yourself, that you can actually, if you're time rich and cash poor, bit by bit build that car up. And you're doing it for the love of the work. Like, you like working on your cars. I don't like working on my cars. I can. I've been helping Damani with his car, you know, doing brake swaps and big brake kit swaps and all that sort of thing. And I have worked on cars, but I'm just not into it. But and generally speaking, I'm time poor and tend to have more money than I have time. Not more money than sense, unfortunately, but more money than time. So it's cheaper. It's actually cheaper for me to then pay someone to swap the suspension over, because the time it would have taken me to do it, which would be 4 times as long as a specialist doing it, in that time, I can make more money than it's going to cost me to have that work done. But I do think for a lot of younger people, especially, because like Damani, he's doing pretty well, but there's certain things that he'd rather not pay for, and he'd rather just do it himself. And plus, we can film it. And
yeah, the only problem though is that, particularly with stuff like, say, your R34 and that, the price of these cars has gone up by so much, as has the cost of all the parts associated with it, because they are quite close to the desirable model that everybody wants. I don't think, and this is another issue that I have with project cars, is like, look, if you want to buy a project car because you love working on your cars and that's your thing, and you have the time and the inclination, and the process is what you enjoy, fill your boots, have at it. Yeah. But if you are saying you're buying a knackered example and you're going to do it up to save money, I'm sorry, I ain't buying what you're selling, because there is almost no circumstance I can think about, unless you've got some sort of spectacular deal on the car, just getting a half-decent working example almost always works out at cheaper than trying to fix up a bad one.
You are using mathematics and logic.
Yeah, I know.
This is not what applies. Will said it himself. It's always going to cost you more than you think it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And it's always going to take longer than you think it's going to take. But by then, you're so committed, you have to finish it.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. So people will go into it thinking, oh, well, you know, I'll do all the work myself. I'll save a load of money. And I'll get the parts bit by bit. I'll, you know, try and source parts here, there, and everywhere. And then they find out that actually exactly what you've just said is what happens.
I'm about £10,000 deep into a £2,000 MG. So look, I know that the economics of it doesn't always work out, but I went into that eyes open, knowing exactly what it was that I was doing and why I was doing it. I've done it to myself, so I don't like seeing others do it to themselves. They go, hey, I'm going to go and buy this Golf. It's going to be really affordable. It's only 350 quid. And then, you know, £5,000 later, they're a broken down husk of a man, you know, that's been just beaten into submission by this curmudgeonly old VW. You know, sitting there going, it's a good idea, honestly. But whereas inside they're just, you know, rocking in a padded cell.
Listen.
But he hasn't learned his lesson yet. He's
still
thinking about more cars that are going to be exactly the same. And that's why I'm saying, I think in a lot of ways it is the future, because one, we don't learn our lessons. And also, I think, going back to the passion point, many people will want to keep a lot of these cars on the road out of the passion for it. And as we move forward, I mean, all of these EVs, like most of the cars on the road, forget EVs, most modern cars are just not as fun or interesting as, when did we say cars peaked? I can't remember.
2018.
2018, that was it, 2018. Pretty much anything post 2018 is kind of like...
Do you know what I find really fascinating? Is I see lots of people bitching and moaning about battery packs in cars, right? First off, you'll always see people regurgitating some complete unproven horse droppings about, oh, well, you know, the Tesla needs a new battery every 65 seconds and it'll cost you £12 billion. And it's like, what? Where are you even getting this from? Like, okay, yeah, battery packs occasionally fail, but I don't hear people saying, "Oh, my friend's RX-8 failed after 20,000 miles. I'm never buying a combustion engine car again because the engines only last 20,000 miles and it costs $6,000 to rebuild it." You're like, what? This is just complete nonsense, right? Sometimes battery packs fail. Yeah, it's a fact of life. Are they expensive to fix? Yes, but battery packs themselves are quite simple. Like, they're not particularly complicated. They are, in layman's and slightly incorrect terms, a shed load of double A's basically duct tape together, right? And battery technology is improving all the time. So if you go and buy a car that, let's say, by the time you get it in 10, 15 years' time, is 20 years old, and it does need a battery pack will almost certainly be available that is far higher performance, far lighter, probably lower cost as well. So it's going to be, effectively, a massive upgrade for whatever car it is that you're looking at. The stuff that terrifies me are circuit boards and things like that. Someone was recently talking about the Ferrari 296 and like, oh, no one's going to buy those in 20 years because what if the battery pack breaks? It's like, well, if the battery pack breaks, I'll just buy another one. If the dashboard fails, though, like, oh no, you can't just wire up one of those in your shed. Like, no way, that's problematic.
To do that, you need to learn about like EPROMs programming, CAN bus, and you need to be able to get the parts. You need to have some kind of ability to actually diagnose components that have failed on the board. You need to be like there's a guy I watch, Steve from Tronics Fix. You need to be him, basically. You need to be able to diagnose and fix this stuff for that to work.
Yeah, and stuff is now so complicated. Like, it's not like I've had it with the old like 90s Ferraris, and some of the electronics on those fails. But when you actually see the circuit board, it's like a 1990s My First PCB, and you're like, oh well, I can see what's gone on here. The tracker's broken apart. Right, we'll get back in there with some solder, relay the track, like jobs are good and everything works again because it was simple in the first place. Modern stuff.
So I wanted to bring it back a little bit because you were giving a very good description of how I feel apparently about my £350 Golf. That's,
well, I wasn't talking about you at all. I don't know why you were thinking that.
Rocking in the padded cell. You guys are both actually hit how I feel on the head with a nail hammer combination, however the saying is, quite accurately, because he's
lost his words. This car's made him mad.
I have. It might have been the 5 hours of sleep last night, but you never know. So with these kind of things, they both apply. You have the obviously ability of doing it yourself because you love it, and that's one of the reasons I'm into it, because I love working on cars. For me, it makes a lot of sense. For someone like you who hates the idea of holding a screwdriver at any point in time in your life, I don't think a project car like that is good for you. But I took on that car knowing that I would be underneath there spending time, getting to grips with it, replacing the brakes, and yes, I could have bought a really nice example of my Golf. I could have gone out and spent $2,500-3,000 on an estate that has got all of that stuff done and had every little bit done, but I know every single nut and bolt in that car pretty much, and actually kind of worrying, I've touched like almost every single nut and bolt in that car, so you do have to think about that sometimes. So there is another thing about project car ownership and working on is
touching the nuts.
Next time we go to lunch, I'll be comforted by the thought that all of this was put together by Will.
Exactly. Will has touched everyone's nuts.
Yeah.
In this car.
Every one of the nuts in this car.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Let's not get distracted. I mean, I was being totally innocent, obviously.
Of course.
However, I think you made a really good point there. So when Damani and I were swapping the brakes, installing the big brake kit, I'll admit he did most of the work. Actually, that's not fair. I did a good chunk of it.
I saw pictures. You definitely did work.
I even modified caliper carriers and everything, and I did a half decent job of it. But anyway, one of the things that we did, putting brake fluid back in and then bleeding the system, so it was all. We were really slow and meticulous about it. We made sure that it was done right. That what you ended up with was a system with no air in it. I'm not convinced that if you take it to your typical garage or your dealer service place, that they're necessarily always going to be quite as meticulous as you will be. And I would have more confidence in the brakes because we did it than I would if I just gave it to some random person to do it. That's the honest truth.
It goes to purchasing project cars that people have made. If it's the trope of, do you want somebody who is very meticulous about the car and they can talk about everything they've done in detail and have photos, or do you want to buy a project car from the bloke down the street who didn't really have the time for it and decided he wanted to hammer everything into place and use Mansory glue for all the exterior trim and all that kind of stuff? That's also something you've got to bear in mind for when you purchase project cars, who's worked on us previously and how good they are at it. But also,
do you mean masonry glue?
No, Mansory glue. Mansory glue.
Is that like a really expensive?
Yeah, isn't that fancy exotic modified car? Isn't it a Mansory?
It is, and so the Matt Armstrong videos of when he got the, I think it was the Rolls Royce, that was the Marcus Rashford Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
They went to the factory and saw everything and the way they put together, and some of it is literally put on with Tiger Seal. Basically, those expensive cars are glued together.
Wow.
So it's the running joke of that. If you're gluing anything on, you're using Mansory glue. Right. Basically.
Fair enough. Okay, that was something I wasn't aware of. I mean, to be fair, McLaren do use double-sided tape to attach some of the panels on their cars.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's not get things wrong. Duct tape and zip ties is structural under certain circumstances. We all know that. If you've bodged anything, you will know about the structural properties of zip ties and duct tape. And if anything ever doesn't come apart, you know, it won't be something that a whole can of WD-40 or similar won't help you with. So yeah, it brings me on to my last bit about that. Actually, is safety. With project cars, I think there are certain things that anybody can have a go at. They can do their oil changes, they can try and fix little bits, but it is well worth getting somebody to help you if you don't have lots of mechanical knowledge on the important stuff. Like, everybody has a go at suspensions and brake by themselves, and I think everybody should do that. But I also think if you've done suspension or brake work for the first time, you should probably get somebody who has a little bit of know to come and just check it over as well.
Oh, I agree with that, definitely, if you haven't done it before. I've been changing brake pads since I was 18 years old, so
yeah,
I'm totally okay with that.
Can I also say, and I am absolutely biased in this, that the people out there who say if you don't work on your own car, you're not an enthusiast, that opinion can get in the bin.
It really can.
Oh, I disagree with that.
I hate that opinion, because I'm someone who does work on my own car and loves it. But what about the people who, for medical reasons, can't work on their car? What about the people who just, they don't have the confidence in the skills? It's not something they want to do, but they still love cars. What about the kids that stand on the roundabout who aren't even old enough to have a license, but they take photos and videos of the cars going all you know, by every day? Are they not car enthusiasts? They might never work on their cars, but they probably know the inside knowledge and specs of loads of cars more than the people that do turn spanners know. So that is an old trope, I think, back from the time when perhaps cars were more simpler and it was a manly thing to work on your car all the time. And I think that can get in the bin.
I also think that, again, going back to the point where sometimes that's just like a pointless exercise.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in my other business, I can make more money with that day than it's going to cost me in labor for someone to do the work for me. It doesn't make sense for me to. It's like you know, you're not really looking after your home unless you do all of your own hoovering. Well, I could spend a couple of hours doing all of that stuff, but then that's 2 hours I am not making more money doing something else. It makes no point.
Yeah, if it's going to cost you, you know, £100 to get something done by a mechanic, but in the time it takes them to do that work, you could do £200 of work in whatever your chosen field is. I think there are some people out there who have somehow convinced themselves that you've lost £100 there, whereas the actual truth is that you've gained £100 effectively, and also helped keep somebody else in employment doing the job that they do. And if you do find a trusted specialist or whatever, they're probably going to be able to do it better than you anyway.
In a fraction of the time.
Yeah. I've got a good point about this as well, is people are also forgetting with project cars, there is a great investment in tools as well to do the jobs properly. Mm-hmm. So I've got a good reputation with my local garage. The guys that work there, they know me well, I know them well. I do their computer repairs for them, they do car stuff for me. We've got a lovely symbiotic relationship. There has been times that I've done jobs on my own cars where I've needed specialist tools that only they have, and they've been kind enough to lend them to me because they know I'll look after them. But not everybody has that option, and that sometimes it makes sense to actually do send your car off to someone, because it'll be way cheaper for a job you have to do once.
I've seen that before. You're like, oh, you can do your own cam belt. By the way, you're going to need this £200 locking kit to hold the timing in place that you're never, ever going to use ever again. So people go, oh, I'll buy it off eBay, and then you probably sell it back on eBay. And it's like, hang on a minute. This is so much time and hassle. Like, you have to sometimes know where to draw the line and go, right, stop.
I was going to say, it's different, though, when you're young and you're broke. That is one thing
100%.
That is one thing I'll
Time
say.
rich, cash poor, like full of enthusiasm and beans.
Yes.
Like, no, being young is the time for all of this nonsense.
Absolutely. And that is where my love of cars comes from. But even I now, as I'm approaching my mid-30s very soon, I'm starting to realise the value of having somebody else do things for you, because it is true. Unless it is, for instance...
Well, I thought you're 34.
I'm turning 34 soon, and that is essentially where your mid-30s start.
That is, yeah.
30, yeah, exactly.
I thought you said 35.
No, I'm 35 next year.
Oh, right.
35 next year.
Oh, I tell you, enjoy it while it lasts.
Basically, I'm getting old and everything hurts already. It is one of those things where, yes, sometimes it is worth just getting the garage to do the odd job, and especially on your daily driver. If, going into the realms of project cars, and it is something, the Maestro, the garage doesn't do work to that, apart from some of the welding and the bodywork, because that is a car I bought to enjoy doing up. And I get a great satisfaction out of, tweaking with the carb, changing the fuel mixture, doing this, changing some suspension bits, and going back and then going out the road and seeing the fruits of my labour. There's obviously been with that to an extent with the Golf, but I have had the garage do a lot of things which I didn't have the space for. When I needed the clutch changed, I had them do it. I could have struggled with the gearbox on the floor, but I thought it's actually going to be worth way more to me to pay them the labour to do it. And it was.
Oh, yeah.
There is one thing that whenever people say, oh, if you're not working on your own car, then you're not a real car enthusiast, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh, nice paintwork. And they were like, I was like, I've been looking for a good body shop. Where'd you get that done? Oh, yeah, I got it done by such and such a body shop down the road. I said, oh, you didn't do it yourself? They were like, oh, no. Obviously, I want to get a good job done. I was like, well, then hang on. If you're not doing everything on your car, why is it suddenly that the bodywork, if it's bodywork, oh, no, you can get someone to do that. But if it's mechanical, no. It's just a completely illogical
I would never
position.
walk up to someone in a cinema and go like, do you like your movies, do you? Yeah, I love my movies. Right, here's this 35mm camera. Now go and load this, please. And you're like, why would I expect that of them? Like, that'd be moronic.
What I do think, though, actually, is it is probably good for people who enjoy and into their cars to have some kind of mechanical knowledge, just to know when things are going wrong or aren't right. I think that is important.
Yeah.
Because more than anything, let's be honest, James, you don't really know how to work on cars, but you could drive a car and go out there and you could say, that is wrong, that bit of the suspension component is wrong, the brakes do not feel right, there is something up with the steering and that damping, and you'd be right about that because you know basically how the systems work and what to expect out of them.
I think that is important for an enthusiast, to be able to know enough about the workings of a car to understand the difference between, let's say, for example, stones hitting the bottom of a car and a suspension being loose. Dick Lovett, Swindon, Ferrari. Yeah, I do know the difference between those two things. Thank you very much. And, just as a casual example to give you there, because you want to make sure that you're not going to get ripped off. I mean, because you all hear these stories, right, of, someone going in to get a quote on their car, typically at one of the large automotive chains that no enthusiast think would ever take their car to, and they get quoted for, rear differential oil in an EV or something like that, or to, for some new front drive shafts on your old MX-5 or something like that. And it's like, hang on a minute, this is not right, or maybe rear brake discs for an Audi Q4 e-tron.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Burn.
Yeah. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Audi. Only you've taken the cigarette lighters out as well, so you'll have a trouble.
So I think on Project, we've had a rant about the things that annoy us about project cars. We've talked about some of the pitfalls of the costs and what you should and shouldn't do, and we've set the world to rights on people being biased about having to work on your own car to be a car lover. With this in mind, what project cars would you choose on a lower budget? Now, we're going to live in a perfect world where perhaps the cars are actually as advertised, kind of thing, and you're not going to run into too much of a kind of financial hardship from these vehicles. If you were to say, now this is very relevant, actually, funnily enough, because I have been thinking that the Maestro might go next year. I know it's a big thing. It's a car that I love a lot. I'm getting some paintwork finished on it this year, and I'm getting it up to spec. But I feel like it might be time for it to go on to its next custodian that will love it. It's not confirmed yet. It's not necessarily happening. But if not next year, definitely the year after is decided.
It's in the consultation stages at the minute. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
What cars would, and I think that thing's worth about $2.5 to $3,000. So I would say, what cars would you buy for about that $2.5 to $3,000 mark, with about 500 quid left over to do some immediate fixings, immediate repairs on it?
So for me, if someone came to me and they said, I'm looking for an interesting project car, and one thing I would always say to people, right, if you're going to get into the project car thing, please, if you require your car for your daily life, which not everybody does, have one that you can rely upon. Do not make the project the daily, because there begins the endless cycle of got a perfectly decent working daily, decided to turn it into the project car broke, had to buy a new daily, decided to modify the daily. Daily's broke now, and then that's how you wind up with what I call a lorry, where you have some 50 vehicles, most of which don't work.
Yeah. You know, that is literally what my life has been. That it's been. I've always been thankful that I don't have one at the moment, but I usually would have a van, which if the other car's broke, I could get into and drive while I was fixing the others. And usually I'm quite lucky in the fact that I can go and, call my mum up and say, Mum, can I borrow your car? And she'll usually be like, yeah, because it hasn't moved in 3 months, so it doesn't really matter anyway. So I'm usually all right with it. I haven't had to throw too much caution to the wind there, but I think for most people who don't have that option, that is a serious important thing to drive home. You need at least one reliable vehicle in your fleet, otherwise you will cry.
Yeah. And no matter how hard it might be, leave it alone. But that being said, if you're in the market for something that was going to be entertaining to drive, a little bit different, but crucially for project car, still have relatively good parts availability and at a relatively good price, the MG ZS 180. Now, that is the early 2000s performance version of the Rover 45. I've owned 3 of them, just sold my 3rd one, which only has appeared on the channel the one time. And that was sold because I found myself a daily, which we'll talk about in another video. But what's really cool about those, and I haven't really seen many people take advantage of this, is the fact that because they're based on an old Honda platform, a great number of the tuning parts that would fit a DC2 Integra Type R will also bolt straight on to the ZS. It's got double wishbone front suspension, multi-link rear. They only weigh 1,250 kilos in factory, guys, with a nice, meaty, fairly durable V6. The cam belts are expensive. That's why they got kind of cheap, that and the fact that it's an MG and the company folded ages ago, or MG Rover as it was folded. And I think they're a pretty awesome thing. They're good fun, and there's lots of potential to do stuff with them because they're also a car that no one's really that precious about. So if I saw one done up in a nice way, even as a track car or something, I'd appreciate that.
You know what? I saw that MG because we went to pick it up, didn't we? We went round and grabbed it after it had some work done. And the second, because Ant, you drove about. Second, I heard the key flick and that it's V6, isn't it? Comes off. I was like, actually, I quite like that.
Yeah,
that's a bit of me. That.
And I got a really, really darn good example for $3,000.
Yeah.
And okay, servicing and stuff does get expensive, but cam belt aside, it's all stuff that you can do pretty easily on your driveway.
I was about to say, as long as this is the problem with the Maestro, the parts availability is getting really low on certain things, and I do worry about something breaking and not being able to fix it. I cannot find any front bushes for that car for love nor money. Mine are fine at the moment, but I have no idea where they are, where I'd get one. If a Bush went and it failed an MOT, I don't know what I'd do. I'm sure somebody in the comment section will say, oh, it's easy. You take it to this company and they'll fit in any Bush. You know, you just send the arm off, send back. I'm sure that's a thing, but I'm just like...
But you also need it done correctly. You need the right type, you need the right spec and everything else. And that's the sort of thing where if you've got a very generous budget and you're like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to keep this Maestro on the road, you do it. But if you're trying to run on a budget, getting bespoke stuff made up, I mean, like our friend, other Ben, Dadcar's Ben, he had the Avon time. I don't think you can even get springs for them anymore. Like, you have to get custom springs made. That's not going to be cheap.
I've had to hack up my exhaust system again because I can't find the right bits for it. I happen to have a spare manifold for this because the exhaust manifold on the car when I got it was rotten through. That was just how it was. It's only because I had the previous car did I have a manifold I could put on it. You can get loads of manifolds, the 1.6 engines. Can you get one for the 1.3? No. And there's loads of things that people on the forums, the Facebook page are saying, my car is off the road because I cannot get a manifold. And people have ended up having to get custom exhausts made.
What I say, you can get a manifold made. You could get a whole exhaust made. It's probably going to cost you near the value of the car.
Exactly. So this is my worry with that thing is at one point there will be something where I'll have to spend some big bucks because it'll be unobtainium.
I've got an idea.
What's that?
What we do is we ask the viewers, make sure you share this with as many friends as possible so that the channel can make enough money to pay for his exhaust.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say? You're like, Austin Maestro with $12,000 exhaust on it.
That would be a video.
Here's a nice little titanium number made up.
Yeah, if there's any exhaust companies out there, they want to do a video. We'll put it on JayEmm on Cars as well, just so that it gets proper
extra
views.
reach, yeah.
Titanium exhaust and manifold for
a 1275A plus.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Your Euro Millions numbers come in. I know where you're going.
Exactly. Oh my God! If I had unlimited budget, I would be like, I don't care. Let's get it done. But I don't have unlimited budget, so that's why something perhaps a bit more modern or older, where there's still a lot of parts available. That's why another big love of mine is Morris Minors. But the problem is with Morris Minors is finding one that isn't rotten and has had the rot hidden or been repaired so badly that it then needs a restoration. And the really nice examples are getting expensive now. They're about 6, 8, 10 grand plus really solid
Which is
ones.
Still dirt cheap for a classic car.
Absolutely, 100%, but a bit out of my budget range.
So you need something a bit more modern. And thoughts?
What was the question?
What would you buy for a cheap project car? Not necessarily for him. You've got like a £2,000-3,000 budget as a starting point.
I don't even know what cars come in at that price. I stopped looking at them a long time ago.
Well, do you know what is another, I think, really cool car and often overlooked? The third generation Toyota MR2. Great cars, not particularly heavy, can still find them for about £1,000. Yeah, some of them have engine issues, but if the engine blows, you can buy a whole nother engine for not much money anyway. They're cool things. They drive beautifully. I mean, they're amazing things. Yeah, not got much space in them or this, that, and the other, but lots and lots of aftermarket parts, lots of scope to do stuff with. And in theory, running costs shouldn't be that high. In fact, I would say to you, I know you like the idea of a Boxster, but a third gen MR2, massively compromised in terms of storage space. That's the big problem with them, and that's why I don't own one. But as a drive, fantastic. Just need to see if you're fitting one, though.
Yeah, that is the problem. I don't know if they have foamectomies. That'll work on those for someone of my stature. So that is an issue. I will talk about some of the project cars I have been thinking about. I have got the opportunity to potentially have my old Volkswagen Transporter van back. It's not confirmed. I am bullying the person I sold it to, who is a good friend as well, into selling it back to me once it's done. That's the one we had for 20 years. And I love and I miss dearly and wish I'd kept. But also the idea of something new. I'm thinking I would potentially like an Audi A4 first generation pre-facelift in manual with the 1.8 turbo engine because that's still an engine where you can get lots of parts for, and they still are making parts for that car. And there's still plenty of bits about for them, and I've looked into that. So yeah, that's something you could feasibly do. Only problem is it's a little bit too similar to the Golf, I suppose.
Yeah, because if the Golf's going to stay around, it's almost
Yeah.
superfluous, really.
And the other one has been a first-generation Audi TT convertible.
See, now that's interesting, because I think a lot of the TTs have had a bit of work done, but there's still lots of them around, so they don't command that much money just because of the sheer quantity of them.
Yes.
But I think if you could, for like sub £2,000, find a reasonable first-gen TT, and like you say, go with the less desirable one, go with the smaller engine, the front-wheel drive and all that, you already know the VAG world already.
Yeah.
So much parts interchangeability, because are those the same platform as the Golf?
They're based on, is it the 8J or 8L or something like that? The 1J, I think it's the 1J platform, something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, the wheels that are on my Golf are from a Mark 1 TT. So,
You've already got the wheels.
And I've already got a nice Audi steering wheel if the other one needs replacing. And the thing is, all my tools and all the bits will work with them. Yeah, again, it is a little bit of a case of it is quite close to the Golf in what it does. But at the same time, I think the convertible and the fact it'll be a bit more premium inside would make enough difference. And I think it'd also be a car that my wife would probably be happy to drive as well. You know, because we were discussing as well that she adores the Nissan Figaro. I think it's great as well. But the problem is good ones that aren't rotten are getting much harder to find.
Yep.
And also, you mentioned 3-speed automatic with an old 1-litre turbo is quite a stark different driving experience.
Not a turbo.
Oh, is it not a turbo?
Not a turbo.
I thought the Nissan Figaros did come with a turbo. I swear
I might be wrong, but I don't think it is. I think it's a 1-litre naturally aspirated.
Maybe they did both, because I'm sure there is, but we could be wrong. The comment section, let us know. But either way, a 3-speed 1-litre engine.
It's not a performer, that's for sure.
It's not a performer. So I don't know.
What I do like for you though is another convertible, sub 9.3.
Yeah.
Preferably in that like weird sickly acid green yellow.
What years did they run from again?
It's basically like early 2000s, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
For most of the 2000s.
They're basically like a Vauxhall Vectra, I think it is, with a.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for them.
Oh,
Many
yeah.
different flavours of engine as well, basically all turbocharged, so you can have different flavours of petrol or diesel if the mood takes you. And they're a little bit eccentric. They're a little bit different. I could see you in one of those.
I like that kind of thing, and I think they have a bit more space for carrying people and things as well, which would also be nice. And you get into the thing is the car you can almost daily actually, right
100%
up until
could
winter.
daily.
Yeah. So there's so many. I mean, this is where I'm going to need your help. Comment section. What you think that would suit me, and also just what you think your good choices are in general for that.
I just went on to Auto Trader and I found nothing. Actually, there was loads of stuff on there, but nothing that I would be.
Auto Trader's
interesting.
no good for cheap cars. That's the problem.
Yeah, there's some cheap cars on there, but they're just boring. So I think that's another topic really for today, which is where do you look? Like, where do you look for that car?
Well, I mean, basically, the best place to find a project car is from somebody that you know, really, which obviously opens it up more to chance, but that makes it a little bit more fun. Otherwise, it's Facebook Marketplace, and I know people that have done deals with the actual devil and got on a better trade than those that have gone onto Facebook Marketplace, or the likes of Gumtree. But I mean, Gumtree really is only sort of like one very small stage above a wet market in terms of like authenticity and, decency.
I bought one of my first Peugeot 106s for 240 quid from Gumtree back in the day.
Yeah.
Did you say a wet market?
Yeah.
Is that where you get car owner virus?
Boom, boom.
I was going to say that I think Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree can be all right, but you need to have your wits about you. You need to...
And only look locally. Go and look at the damn thing before you send them any money.
Oh, absolutely. Always look at the car first. And if you're not that mechanically minded, bring a friend that is. It doesn't always necessarily mean that you'll still buy a good one, because I'm quite mechanically minded and I still bought a VW Golf that rusted away and had everything snap very shortly after purchase. It is how it works out sometimes. It just is.
I think, even if you can't find someone who's mechanically minded, someone who's at least got a critical eye.
Yes.
Because if you really, really want a car, you will look past so many faults.
That's what happened with my Morris Minor. That's exactly what happened with that.
Yeah, you get target fixation.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, when I went to look at the RHET, I said, James, can you please come with me? Because I need someone who will point out the issues to me that I will refuse to see.
With someone that doesn't have skin in the game. So what I do really like for project cars, actually there's a couple of ideas here, is the ones I really like are ones, not entirely unlike the MG, where the manufacturer, for whatever reason, didn't let the car realise its full potential. And I'm going to say one here, the Toyota Yaris T-Sport. They put the spicy engine in the little Yaris, but the chassis was never really quite up to it. So I think that's a really good kind of car to start off with, a fun little thing, because you get the hot little 190 engine in those.
Oh,
awesome cars. Or is it the Corolla T-Sport that they did?
I think it might have been the Corollas, because you could do easy things like you could put some good suspension on, you could put some strut braces, you know, and like you could do loads of things to make the cars handle better and stuff like that. You know, yet again, fun projects. Do you think that we should have a JayEmm and Friends project car at some point?
Something to think about.
Yeah, something to think about. But,
not just yet, but like something. Maybe that's something for the future. Maybe that's something that the audience can let us know what they think about that.
Yeah, I got my own problems at the minute. As I like to say to people, like, you know, I've been trying to thin down the fleet for a little while, and so far I've thinned it down from 5 to 12. It gets ridiculous sometimes. I mean, honestly, I'm in the situation at the minute where I think that one working car of my own that's on the driveway is the Scuderia. Now, part of that's because some stuff is in storage. I mean, you should live with the Celica for a little bit, because that's a cool car. And they did do, like, you know, your regular front-wheel drive versions of those. The big problem with projecty cars is there are things that you as a home mechanic are definitely going to be able to do, but also when it does come to stuff like big rust repairs, that's generally way beyond the skills of any driveway mechanic, or just not in the skills, but it's just not practical.
Yeah, I cannot weld, and if I did, actually, the one time I tried welding something, I set the car on fire. So, yeah, that's as far as that went.
And I can't help you. I haven't welded anything since 1987, I think.
So I think good project cars do still exist, but you got to look for them in unlikely places. Also, here in Britain, we are a bit unfortunate because we have salt on the roads and we have rain all the time. So I am very envious of those videos you see from the States where people have gone into a field or a woods, pulled a car out that looks like it really has been there since 1982, chuck some fresh oil in it, fire it up and drive it home. And it's like, what?
That's exactly what I was on about with the Vice Grip garage guy earlier. That's what he did. Like a lot of the car. Okay, he's driven back some cars that are like way beyond gone just for the fun of it, but like a lot of those cars, they might have to replace some brake lines and some rubber components, but 9 times out of 10 they get it up with the original engine and things just come back to life, and he drives it 1,000 miles across the kind of the country. Same with people like Junkyard Digs as well. They do the same kind of things, and it's a great watch, actually.
Well, you know what we need to do? We need to get you, I know I've mentioned it before, we need to get you to Rustival.
Yes.
Because I think there maybe you'll find some inspiration for what you could have next.
I reckon so. Is it wrong? And the problem is as well, this is going to be another car where you can't get parts. I kind of want an Austin Allegro. I
get that.
The thing is, people keep going. A lot of people saying to me, "Oh, the Maestro, is that the one with the weird steering wheel?" I'm like, "No, that was the Allegro." And a lot of people go, "Oh, was that one?" And I was like, "No, but actually, I do like the idea of an Allegro, because I sometimes enjoy the worse a car was received by the general media and general people, the more I tend to like it. It's strange like that."
Yeah, it's like the last dog in the pound, isn't it?
Exactly.
You've got a thing for it. Like you love it. I think it's a very British thing as well to love an underdog.
It is.
Probably helps we made so many of them over the years.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah.
I actually think, seriously, some of the MG stuff from the early 2000s, you might not be too far off something that would interest me there, to be honest.
So I'll have to get you out in some. It's a shame I just sold mine.
Yeah, we'll see at some point. But then again, they also have rust issues too, don't they?
Well, yeah, but that's also, there's still quite a few of them about, so you just got to be careful with which one you buy. So in other words, don't buy the ones that I buy. But then I bought it because I knew nobody else was going to save it.
Yeah.
Nobody in their right mind would spend anywhere close to what I have on that car, because at the end of it, it's still not, it's going to be worth maybe a third of what I've spent on it. But I'm doing it because nobody else is going to save that car.
Same with the Maestro, and also to an extent, the same with the Golf. I know more of the Golfs now in the owners' clubs are getting put up for braking, put up for spares, put up for parts, so it's not worth putting the money into. And, you know, I know that they're starting to get thinner on the ground, especially the estate variants. So if I was in theory to keep hold of that car for another 10 years, actually, that might be one of the nicest examples out there of one, believe it or not.
Oh, you know what we should also try and get you into?
What's that?
BMW Z3.
Oh, I've always wanted to drive a Z3. I love the look of Z3s.
Because again, they're quite cool. I think they've really grown into their looks.
Yeah.
Not hideously expensive to buy unless you look at the M variants. Yeah, they do suffer some issues, but great availability for parts.
Yeah.
You can get basically everything. They're still mechanically fairly simple things.
The 1.9s are everywhere, you know, the 4-cylinders. And actually, a lot of those have about 140 horse, which is enough poke to have some fun in. And I had a similar version of that engine in my E46 318i. And that was very, very easy to work on. That was a very basic, kind of an old school designed engine. So there was not a lot to go wrong with it.
No.
So, yeah, again, you'd be looking at seals and hoses and things like that. That might not be a bad idea. I love a Z3.
All right, summer series. Let's find Will a convertible.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think with that, we should hopefully have given the audience a little bit of inspiration. And if there's something you're thinking about, maybe you're working on a project car of your own and it's either broken you spiritually or maybe made you see the light, we'd love to hear about it. Either comment down below here on YouTube or email us on landlord@theradiatorarms.com. And however you either watch or listen to us, don't forget, you'll be able to find us on Monday morning at 7 o'clock every week, at least as long as we can make it happen. And yeah, we really appreciate you listening or watching us as always. And please, if you've got an idea for a future episode, send them in because we're starting to run out. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.